Hey,
Hey, you can change your name.
it's normally I know how to, but for some reason,
Oh, is it weird? Because
oh
it's like
wait, I think since you joined on, it wasn't letting me when I was the only person,
strange.
but now it worked.
I'm really blown out. Let's see.
I'm trying to figure out how to turn off my Teams sound notification.
No, that happens. Oh, okay, that didn't really fix anything, but oh well.
One time I was on an intro call with Marcel and he was feeding me my talking points via Teams and it was just buzzing.
Everything it kept coming in.
I mean, it was only like a couple things, but
Oh, right. Oh well.
they could definitely hear them.
We should be able to turn off the sound. I wonder if it's gonna let. Oh, I can mute. I don't know how to mute all of them. No. Maybe I can just generally mute my chat.
There's a way to turn off notifications, but
I don't think I'm gonna get that many more now since it's 6 o'clock.
yeah.
Oh, I did an existing asset model and I sent it to Omar and he immediately was like, this is off. But and I think he read my email wrong because I said it's not hitting one in my email, and then he was like, hello.
Hello.
Hello. I'm Marcia Cooper from Green Newton.
Hi, Marcia. Nice to meet you. I'm Jacob, and here with Rachel. We're both from Sunwealth.
Oh, yes. So how many people are you expecting at this meeting? You have any idea?
We're not really sure. Probably not too many. I think it's mostly going to be leadership from organizations that would be working with the residents as opposed to the residents themselves, but we'll see.
That's okay. I invited a Mass Clean Energy Center intern at Green Newton.
Okay.
Her name is Windley, and so she should be popping on. And also, I imagine Bev. I do not have the kind of expertise that Bev has, and so you'd be wasting your time really just to go. I mean, no, not really, but I would be wasting your time in the respect that we should have a bigger group of people that. So.
Well, I'm glad you're joining. Our goal is to explain the program as kind of simply as possible so that anyone can understand it. And then of course we're, excited to take questions at the end too.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Hi, Diego.
Hello.
Good evening.
How are you?
Well, thank you.
Great. Jacob, do you want to add that you're from Sunwealth onto your name?
Yes. You read my mind. Or I read your mind.
Yeah. Thanks for joining. We'll probably give it a few more minutes for people to hop on.
Yeah, I fully assume that there will be others. There we are, since we're naming ourselves.
Right.
I'm afraid I have not reviewed the materials that you forwarded to them yet. I have a broad sense of things, but I don't have any of the detail.
That is okay.
Yeah, the goal of this is to sort of go into those details, so, and then answer any questions you may have afterwards.
All right.
Hi, Beverly.
Hi, how are you?
Hi. Are you?
I'm
Oh,
also
there's your
eating, so I won't stay on video. So you don't have to watch me. I'll say hi briefly.
Hello.
Nice to meet you. Welcome.
Nice to
Hi,
see you
John.
in person.
Hello, hello.
Definitely.
Right. I think there might be one or two more people. But yeah, so maybe at 6:05 we can get started or do introductions.
Hey, Bev.
John, how are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Is Ellen more restored after your vacation?
She is more restored. Yes.
Good, I'm glad.
But she probably wants to head back to Vermont.
Uh,
I told her your comment and she said, oh, okay, yeah, I could do that.
well, I go through my periods. Marcia's seen me like get fried and I take a couple days and I come back. Yeah.
Right, exactly. It's a strange year. Vacations have sort of just become a weird
I know.
concept.
Yeah.
Well, I think I told you, John, that Frank and I hit all the 10 best waterfalls in Massachusetts. So
And I'm
we did get
jealous.
to the last 6. So it was really
Wow.
fun.
That's great.
There are
Yeah.
websites that go for list watering holes around the countryside. And I kept thinking, well, that would be a good excuse to go. Some people do ball fields. I could go do waterfalls,
Yeah.
watering holes.
And then Jonathan Klein, who's on our energy commission, is doing lighthouses in New England, which I think there's like, or no, actually in Massachusetts. There's like 40 in Massachusetts, which like blows me away, actually.
All right. Cool. So Leanna's on.
Leanna's with Sunwealth as well.
Cool. All right, Jacob, do you want to wait another minute or two before we get started? Okay. I guess we could start introducing ourselves if you want.
Sounds good. I was just muting myself because I had loud traffic noise outside.
Okay. Do you want to start?
Sure, yeah. So, hi everyone, I'm Jacob. I'm one of the members of the project development team at Sunwealth, and I do a lot of work on community solar, along with Rachel and Leanna. So we're gonna spend the next, I would say, 30 minutes to an hour going through the program and then answering any questions that you have about what it means to participate in it and how to sign up and anything else that might come up.
Hey, and Jacob, I see you're recording. Will you guys post this somewhere? Because there's a couple of people I wanted to send this to.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
can.
we'll figure out how to do that. But yeah, definitely. I think we can probably put it on like a Google Drive or somewhere online where people can access it.
YouTube's the easiest if you don't mind the ads, but
Oh, YouTube? That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
it's
sure.
then it's not anyway. We find that
That's great. Yeah, we were thinking about how best to distribute it, so that's a good idea.
Sure.
Um,
Rachel, do
I
you
can
want to
go
introduce?
next.
Yeah.
Sure. I'm Rachel. I'm also a project developer at Sunwealth, and we'll talk a little bit more about Sunwealth as an organization. I work on a variety of solar projects and have been a big part of getting our community solar programs up and running this past year. And yeah, we're just excited to explain the program and to expand the folks that we can get energy savings to. So cool. Let's see. Marcia, you're next up on my screen. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. So I'm Marcia Cooper, president of Green Newton, and interested in whatever we can do for sustainability. So interested to learn more about your program. And I'll just hand it over to Bev from Green Newton, but also Mass Clean Energy Center. Bev, why don't you go next?
Sure. Beverly Craig. I am on the Green Newton board and the Building Standards Committee, and I worked for years in affordable housing. So I guess I feel like you guys have answered a lot of my questions already, but we probably will have some more. But I do know a lot of affordable housing, especially. I think most of them are actually pretty good about getting on R2 rates, although I'm suspecting more of the housing authorities maybe don't. So that's a really nice pairing when you can sign somebody up for R2 and the solar, community solar at the same time.
Diego, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm with a community organization called Metro West Worker Center. Casa del Trabajador in Framingham and Milford are where we have offices and sort of, yeah, a membership of low income, mostly immigrants in the surrounding towns, but all the way up to Leominster and down to Taunton at times as well.
Okay. I guess we have John and Leanna left, so either one of you guys.
Well, I'll jump in, let Leanna have the honors being last. John Harper, let's see. I'm a member of Congregation Bethel and work with Judy Slingshinger and Judy Cates, who I think, Diego, that's how you've come to be on this call.
Yes.
I'm familiar with what Sunwealth has been doing for some time. Probably the most recent hat is working with the town of Wayland. I'm on Wayland's Energy Committee. And Sunwealth has been working with the Wayland Housing Authority on our residents of the Housing Authority, and help them both in terms of getting on the R2 rates as well as getting them on the community support program. So that's been a wonderful opportunity for them. So this came out of that and looking to see other opportunities to grow the program. So, and Diego, Bev and I know each other mostly through my wife, who has worked with Bev forever and is working on a program called Mass Energize, which is working with communities to try and encourage opportunities and individual actions on climate change. So this is kind of along the side of that activity, but very much in keeping with that activity. So I'll stop there.
I am Leanna. I have been with Sunwealth for over a year now, kind of doing various different roles. I started kind of as an intern doing like most of the billing side. And now I'm transitioning to the project development team, which is the same team Rachel and Jacob are on. My laptop is also apparently allergic to Zoom, so I will look like I'm taking a selfie the entire time. So that's good.
Awesome.
Right, thanks, everyone. Glad to have you all here. I think at this point, we have a presentation that I'm going to walk everyone through. So I'm going to jump into that right now. And then we can have discussions and answer any questions afterwards. Let me just share my screen. Did that work for everyone?
Yep.
Great. Now that I have it in full screen mode, is it still working? Okay, awesome.
Yep.
Great. So in the next little while, we're going to talk about community solar. And community solar very broadly is a program that a lot of solar companies are doing, like Sunwealth, which allows electricity customers to benefit from clean energy and to enjoy the savings of it as well, without actually having to host panels on their own roof. And a lot of people don't have the option to, whether they live in an apartment, they're a renter, or their rooftop is very shaded, something like that. And so it's a great way to allow people to participate in the clean energy economy while not expecting that they have the resources to put the panels on their own roof. For a little background on Sunwealth, Sunwealth is a small but growing company that invests in solar energy in Massachusetts and across the country. We're based here in Cambridge, Massachusetts, but we have solar projects in, I think, 11 states now, 10 or 11. And we were founded as a public interest company, which means that we're basically equally as devoted and obligated to prioritizing the public benefit as well as we are our own profits and our own success as a company. And what we view the public benefit being in terms of our business model is we are trying to bring solar energy and the savings that come with it to new markets, whether that's an underserved market in terms of socioeconomic conditions, or in terms of the revenue of an organization, or in terms of any other factor that may be a barrier to participation in the clean energy market. We are trying to overcome those barriers and bring renewable energy to new communities. So I'm going to go through a couple examples. This project of the projects that we do. This project here is in Dorchester, Massachusetts. It's one of two projects associated with the same school, the Epiphany Early Learning Center, which is a school that's focused, has a great mission and definitely has a strong focus on educating people who are from economically and racially disadvantaged backgrounds. So that's one of the types of projects that we do is on schools. And we also do a lot of projects with municipalities. This one's in Yarmouth, and this is a fire station. So, you know, organizations that don't have a lot of extra revenue on the side to finance their own projects, we come in and finance them and are able to sell them the electricity at a discounted rate, and they can enjoy those savings. This is also a fun project. We did one in Marathon, Iowa, which is, Rachel could tell a little bit more about it than I can because she's actually been to it, but it's a small town in agricultural Iowa. I think it's 200 people, and these panels can actually power most of the town, especially when the sun is shining really bright in peak times of year. So that's another project that we're pretty proud of. Jumping back into why we're here tonight, community solar. I'm going to give a basic overview of how community solar works, and hopefully this diagram will help a little bit. So you see on the left side where we have the panels in the sun. This represents a solar project that Sunwealth has financed and built. And it will be somewhere in the eastern Massachusetts region. We have 2 that are going to be operating very shortly, which is why we're able to be signing up new customers to participate in community solar soon. And these are not on site from where any of the residents live. So the power that's generated from these panels actually gets fed into the grid, and the utility keeps track of how much power the panels generate, and we're able to distribute that virtually via energy credits to different homes and businesses in eastern Massachusetts. And so the credit for the solar energy shows up on their electricity bill, and then they actually pay for those credits at a rate lower than what they are currently paying for their electricity through their utility. So John mentioned Congregation Beth Elohim. We recently finished building this project at Congregation Beth Elohim, and it's now operating, and 30 residents in the state of Massachusetts are benefiting from community solar, which amounts to over $80,000 of savings over the project's lifetime. And a lot of those residents are actually at the Wayland Housing Authority. So that's pretty exciting. And we'll have 2 new projects coming into operation shortly that are similar to the one you see in the pictures. And that's what will be distributing the solar energy for our upcoming community solar signups. So a big question is, who qualifies for Sunwealth Community Solar? There are 2 ways to qualify, which Bev mentioned a little bit earlier. The first way is a customer on the R2 or the R4 rate, which are the subsidized rates under Eversource, are automatically eligible to participate in community solar. The other way that someone can become eligible is if they're on any of the residential rates under Eversource East, that is, Eastern Massachusetts, and they reside in what's considered an income eligible zone, then they can also participate in the program. And that has to do with the actual median income of the neighborhood that they reside in. This map at the bottom here is a visual aid just to show the map that the state of Massachusetts uses to determine income eligible zones. And if there are any questions about this map, I'm happy to distribute it afterwards. But basically anything that has the word income next to it in the key is an income eligible zone, and any residential customers in those areas are allowed to participate in the Sunwealth Community Solar Program. So that would be the lime green, the army green, the turquoise, and the navy blue here. All right, and so getting into the benefits of it. So the 2 main benefits are that participants save money and they're part of the clean energy economy. So Sunwealth gives 25% savings on all solar credits that are allocated to the bills. In certain scenarios with very specific needs of the participant, we will give higher savings, but our standard low income rate is 25% savings. And that amounts to roughly 20 to 25% total savings on your monthly electric bill. I'll explain in, I think, the next slide why it's not the same as the exact number that we give on our discount, but it does come out to an average of in that range to 20 to 25% savings on monthly electricity. And the other huge benefit is people are able to benefit from solar energy and support the growth of renewable energy in Massachusetts, and be part of that growing economy. So here's where I'm going to explain how the savings work in a little bit more depth. So at the bottom, you can see on the left side, we have before community solar. So this is a sample customer, and we're just assuming that they have a $50 average monthly electricity cost. And so for this specific customer, the way that we would do it is we would take 80% of their average monthly cost of electricity and cover that with the solar energy credits. So we're always doing 80% of the total electricity cost, mostly because monthly energy use varies month to month. And so we don't ever want to have a situation where we've allocated more credits than that person has actually consumed in that month. So we give 80%. And so $40 worth of credits will show up on their bill, that 80% of 50, and we'll give them a 25% discount on those credits. So they'll only be charged $30, even though the value of the credits is $40. And then the remaining 20% of their bill, that $10, is still paid to Eversource as it was in the past, and there are no discounts applied to that. That's not, Sunwealth doesn't have direct involvement with that part of the bill. And so this amounts to $10 of monthly savings, which in this case is 20% of off of their bill before community solar, even though they're getting 25% savings on the portion that is covered with solar energy credits. I'm happy to answer any questions on that or walk through it again at the end, because I know it's a little bit complicated and there's a lot going on. So here is the sample bill, just to understand where the credits show up. So you will see the monthly credit value show up in negative on your current Eversource bill if you're a participant in this program. So the numbers don't actually match up here because this is just a sample, but in the scenario that I just walked you through, where the customer spends $50 on electricity a month, they would get allocated $40 of credit on their bill, and it would show up negative 40, and they wouldn't actually have to pay any of that value of energy to Eversource. They would get an invoice from Sunwealth, which is on the right here, for $30 because we're giving them that 25% discount off of 40. And they would get that money withdrawn from their bank account by Sunwealth on a monthly basis once the credits have been applied to their Eversource utility bill. The agreement starts off as a 1-year agreement, but it can be extended for up to 20 years, and it's automatically renewed if someone doesn't cancel. And as I just showed on the previous slide, the credits for the solar energy are actually show up right on your Eversource bill. So the savings are automatically added to the bill every single month. And then Sunwealth charges for those credits at a discounted rate with automatic monthly payments. We always make sure that before we withdraw the money from a participant's account, we are going to ensure that the credits have already been applied to their electricity bill, so that no one's ever getting charged for these credits and not actually benefiting from them showing up on their bill. And importantly, participants can cancel at any time. We ask for 60 days notice, just so that we can have time to fill their spot with a new participant. But there's no charge for terminating the contract. We really only are hoping to help people save money here. There's no sort of hidden gotcha where we throw a huge charge on someone that they didn't expect. We're not trying to exploit anyone here. This is really, our goal is to distribute savings and to broaden participation in the clean energy market. So there's no cost for cancellation ever. And the next steps for signing up, if for a participant, is to sign our community solar agreement, which is a contract, and we're happy to walk through that with anyone who has questions on it. And along with that contract, the future participant will give their auto payment information for Sunwealth to be able to withdraw the monthly amount from their account. And we realize that that's not everyone's favorite aspect of the program, but it's really important for us to be able to guarantee the monthly savings. And when they sign up, the participant also will show us their Eversource bill so that we can get an understanding of their previous energy use and then allocate the correct number of credits according to what they've used in the past. And from there, they are saving money every month and participating in our program and helping the clean energy economy to continue growing. And we've found that this has been a really successful program so far, and we're really excited to continue it. So with that, thank you all, and I'm happy to take questions, and Rachel and Leanna can also add anything they'd like or answer questions as well. So we're all here as resources.
Thanks, Jacob. All right. Oh, Marcia, do you have a question?
A couple, well,
Okay.
one, and you all, everybody else, like Bev, would probably know the answer to this anyway, but so are there two possibilities for community solar? One is PPA on the location of let's say the synagogue or the home or the community center or whatever. And the other is like you can sign up for it, but you don't have any solar on your location. Are there two?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. So the way that this program works is specific. The solar panels that are on the congregation or at the congregation's parking lot, they're actually getting savings from the system as well. So if you're totally right, like you have a PPA and you have panels on your property, and then you can buy the electricity directly from those panels. So that's one option. And you can also split projects into multiple things. So in that case, they're buying 50% of the power, and then 50% is going to these virtual allocations, which means they go to the folks who don't have the panels on their roof, but they sign up for this program specifically. And so those are kind of like from a larger scale on getting solar, like any organization or resident that wants to get solar, those are kind of the two options. But for this program specifically, it's targeted for folks who aren't going to get solar on it's specifically for residents, and it's specifically for people who won't get panels on their, on the building where they reside. But it does mean that we own the panels somewhere else. And a lot of times the way that we compensate the landowner is through reduced electricity in the same exact way. And sometimes we pay them a lease to use their land. So we'll give them X amount of dollars per year as, thank you for letting us put our solar panels on your property.
Okay, that's good. One thing, observation is that when we're marketing our aggregation program, Newton Power Choice, we say on a typical electricity bill of $150. So I was a little, I think it's interesting.
Yeah,
but low income won't be that high. Mine is
in an
not
ideal
that
world.
Yeah, Marcia, mine is half that. So like, and
yeah, I figured,
but
but
how big your unit is. So this program is really targeted for low income, right? So
I understand.
Yeah. So they're going to have smaller units, and the average of the low income in Newton, I bet, is more like $70 probably, maybe even less. So
yeah, the 1-bedroom units those were also older folks, but at the Wayland Housing Authority, the average was like $50, maybe even less. So it just depends on, obviously a single family home, 150 is even on the low end. So it just depends on the number of people in the household.
So in Newton, Marcia, I think there's there's a very small part that is income qualified. That's that green, very small, but we could market to everybody who lives there, this program, for example. But then also any low income property. So 2 Life probably has the biggest number of units in Newton. those are senior, and I bet most of their bills are either master metered, and so they don't have an electric bill and they wouldn't be relevant for this, or it's a senior single, it would probably be a studio or a 1-bedroom, and their cost would be around that. But then there's probably a lot of retirees on very fixed income that own their own home in Newton that are eligible for the R2 rate and this as well, but probably don't know it. And I bet their electricity prices are actually much higher because a lot of them aren't tiny homes, but they're paid off and they're retired and they have very little income, so they would qualify.
Yeah, do you guys think it would be helpful for you to have a couple of different sample bills? The one that we showed wasn't quite fixed to the correct numbers, but we can just, edit them to make what it would look like if your bill was $50 or if your bill was $200, just so it was like simple for people to kind of think about how much they would save.
Maybe like 50 and 100. I don't think you need to do a million of these.
Yeah, okay.
You get the idea and can adjust. And I assume it varies a lot by season, right? If people have air conditioning or window units or something, it's going to be much higher in the summer. So you're going to look at the old Eversource bill and get an 80% allocation as a guess for the next year.
Yeah, the nice thing is that solar typically aligns with the air conditioning use because it's a lot sunnier when, and that's why we look at it on a holistic a year basis. It's not actually going to be 20% every month. It'll be, some months will be less and some months will be more.
So it just, if your credit was higher, it would roll over to the next bill then? Okay.
Yeah, it would roll over, but that's why we kind of make it smaller, because ideally we don't want
it to do that,
we don't want it to do that because then they have to pay for it before they're using it. And some people,
So the bank account, history, so I was very skeptical of this idea when I heard about it, because I've got to say I have a bad history with low-income solar, community solar. Because the early days, it was a 20-year contract, and there was a very big penalty if you moved out of the state or out of even the electric utility. And of course, renters do that a lot. So I know of several instances where a low-income family thought they were going to be saving money, and then 2 years later go to move and get hit with a very high penalty. And it's nice this does not have that, and it sounds like it's not even tied. So then for a while, people would waive that if there was a waiting list, right? But there can be situations where the cost of electricity goes down instead of up, which is what most like PPAs tend to project, right? But the nice thing is if something changes policy-wise in Massachusetts for low income, so like I could imagine the R2 rate gets changed dramatically to encourage electrification in low-income households, for example. People can opt out of this at any time if they can find a better deal, is the nice thing. And there doesn't have to be a waiting list, which was what it used to have to be.
Yeah, we've built in we've built in a bit of wiggle room into our model, assuming that people will be moving and we might, have missed months of revenue for that reason.
So it just, signing up more people allows you to build more solar. That's the thing, right?
Yep, and that's why, we want to share the benefits with as many people as possible, but it also means that we get to keep, doing our work as an organization and building more solar.
And so the R2 rate, is it 26 or 29% in Eversource territory?
A discount? I think it's 36.
36?
Really big, yeah.
So 36 plus this extra 20.
Yeah.
So if somebody is eligible for R2 and doesn't realize it right now, you can give them more than a 50% discount on their electric bill.
I think so. I need to do the math because you get the 26% off first, and then you get the 26 off of, or you get the 25 off of what your new reduced rate is. So it's
right.
You see what I mean? But it would be a little less than half, I think.
It's in that range. So in Wayland, when you signed up the housing authority people, they got the double benefit.
Yeah, no, it wasn't everyone. A lot of people were on the rate, but for some people it was. Yeah, it's going to make a big difference in their bills.
So Rachel, a couple of questions. Does someone need to be a citizen in order to participate in the program?
I don't think so. They just need to have a utility account. We're not checking anything else. Okay. I will say our goal is to not sign up people with, this isn't related to the citizen thing, but our goal is to not sign up people with large balances, because we anticipate that if they're not making payments, we'll have to take them out of the program. There won't be, there will be no penalty, but we have to remove them if they're not paying, because we won't be able to sustain the program. But that's not related. That's just one thing I did think about that we didn't technically mention. But no, they don't have to be a citizen. We're not doing any kind of check. They don't need to, the only thing they need to have a bank account in almost all situations. We will consider on a case-by-case basis folks who don't have, a bank account or can't do the auto payment. But on the whole, it's just from an administrative standpoint, we have to have that auto payment for the.
Does it have to be a bank account in the name of the ratepayer, or could it be a third party's bank account if we wanted to put a bank account, to the side to give more privacy to people who are nervous about that?
Yeah, the bank account is all internal within Sunwealth, so it doesn't have to be in the name of the ratepayer. We just need a place to be pulling the money from.
I'm sorry, Rachel, you cut out. I
Oh, yeah, no problem. So the bank account does not need to be in the ratepayer's name. That's an internal, that's just within Sunwealth. The only things that are relatively standard are, like, for example, somebody who signs up, they have to be, when they sign the contract that gets sent to the, Department of Energy Resources through the program, it has to be the name of the person on the Eversource account. But the bank account is only within Sunwealth, so that's fine if it's not the same.
And it sounds like renters are eligible for this program. Someone doesn't have to own their own home.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And what I'm thinking about, this is more of a question for Diego, so a setup here. How would an organization like Green Newton or CASA work with you? What are you envisioning would be a role of an organization as opposed to you marketing directly to renters, et cetera?
Rachel, you're muted.
Oh, I was going to see if you wanted to respond, Jake.
Sure, I'm happy to. I just saw you were talking. So I think the goal is to be a liaison between Sunwealth and potential participants in the program. So we would be happy to do this very similar presentation for people who are interested in signing up, but we are hoping to use organizations like Green Newton and CASA to connect with potential participants who would benefit a lot from the program, and hopefully, form a good partnership so in the long term we can continue to use these organizations as networks for our community solar.
Yeah. I think our goal really is to, once we've gained your trust essentially and kind of explained to you how the program works, to have leadership of organizations or folks that can represent the individuals who would be signing up, that can kind of be a point of trust for people, especially because of the history of third party energy, which this is separate from. But I think it's a lot easier and makes a lot more sense to explain the program through an organization that residents already trust and work with. And I think, and like that's, when we did that with the Housing Authority with Brian Boja, who's the director there, he was super helpful. I mean, it wasn't like, I don't think it was a lot of work for him, because our goal was to make it as easy as possible. So we have all the information, we have different resources, and like all of the documents and blurbs about the program, etc. But he, sent out a description of the program, and back earlier this year, we were having in-person events to get people signed up, but we anticipate being able to do something similar over Zoom or over the phone. So, explaining what the program was in the newsletter and that they could save money. He posted like paper around the building. And also he served as a point of contact for people who had questions within the Housing Authority to ask about the program and to ask about Sunwealth. And so I think that kind of, just that kind of having a person there as a liaison to residents is our goal of working with, you guys from Green Newton or Diego to be able to work with people in CASA and to work with people in the town of Newton, and just to kind of add some validity to our program, and to help people understand that we're trying to help, and we're trying to help them save money too.
Are you, Jacob, this is a setup for you. I'm thinking about most of CASA's, Diego, I'm not sure what the right word, members, clients, people that it helps. They're Hispanic by nationality. Many of them, the English may not be great. So are you able to give this presentation in Spanish or Portuguese or whatever languages would be in some of the other communities here that we're talking about?
Yeah, so I'm not a first language Spanish speaker, but I have decent proficiency with Spanish, so I'd be happy to do this presentation in Spanish. And I was also thinking of creating a summary sheet of the program in Spanish, just sort of the main bullet points to distribute. In terms of Portuguese, I don't think that anyone at Sunwealth Marcia, I see you're signaling. I don't think anyone at Sunwealth speaks Portuguese. I'm curious to hear what you're going to say.
Can't hear you, Marcia. I don't know why. You're not muted. Speak up again. Maybe we can hear you now. No, we can't hear you. I think she's saying we have somebody that speaks many, many languages.
Okay.
But first, before we get into that that's really a marketing strategy once we're like, yes, you're the ones. I guess I have a question. You're not the only ones offering low-income community solar. Like I know Blue Wave, and I think Energy Sage is doing some kind of platform for all kinds. Is there a reason we should go with you instead of someone else? And like for us in Green Newton, like we could promote this in certain communities without like a big RFP, but if we wanted the city, for example, which I think would be an effective thing, to market to that one census tract that is eligible, everybody in it, like a letter from the city would be the most effective way of gaining trust, I think. But I know they could not do it without an RFP.
Right.
Would that ever be worth it? Because it's enough customers. Like Newton doesn't have enough, I think, but like a Cambridge maybe, or I'm trying to think of areas like Boston. They wouldn't do it as a city. They can't even get municipal aggregation. They're so disjointed.
But you're chatting with Amy now, I think, Rachel. Or have you had contacts with Amy Palka in Framingham?
Amy, yeah, we need to follow up with her and with Paul, who's the housing.
Yeah, Sean Luth.
Yeah, we have to kind of revamp that. But one person we are talking to, so essentially we've started the process, not an RFP, but a similar vetting process with the city of Cambridge. And I think Megan Shaw from Cambridge was busy right now, but we've been in communication with her about the program, and she asked a very similar question. And so I think there are a couple of, like you mentioned, so the difference between our program and Blue Wave, I don't know about Energy Sage. We have a bigger discount than Blue Wave's program. I think it's 10, I think it's 15%, it might be 10. Yeah, so that's one thing. There's another program that Citizens Energy is doing, and they did have a bigger discount, but their program was full at least for the next year. And so that was kind of one other aspect of difference there. And also, I know there were a couple of other nuances that I don't have on me at the moment, but
one of them was just the term of the contract. So we allowed people to auto renew for up to 20 years, whereas I think theirs was just a 1-year commitment.
Right, and then you're not guaranteed to be kept in the program after that first year, so you could lose your savings. So I think, it's definitely makes sense to kind of think about the other options, but in terms of the discount that's available for people to sign up right now and to possibly be locked in for that whole time period, our program has those benefits at this point. And then, so with Cambridge right now, our the agreement packet is in legal review. So I don't know how long it's going to take to go through that. We're hoping shorter rather than longer because, so just for full kind of like transparency on the amount of people that we can sign up, we right now have that project that Jacob showed that had 30 signups was a bit smaller than we have 2 more. And so they will have about 100 or 150 more families. Obviously, like depending on how much electricity they use, because if they use more electricity, they get a bigger chunk of these, of the solar. But yeah, so but we're hoping to fill those up by the end of the year, and if they're successful and we can get them filled, then the idea is we continue to build these projects and to expand our program. And I think at that point, probably after the end of this year, and as we look towards new projects being solar arrays, it might make sense then to think about more intensive processes like partnering with new and maybe going through an RFP process, etc. We don't typically do RFPs just because we're kind of quick moving in terms of getting things up and running, but those are definitely good questions. And I think
well, and I think you guys have a couple advantages. You actually have space right now, which I know not everybody does. The discount's higher, and also like you have the people power. Like I don't see anybody else marketing to us, so like that says something. And I also think you've demonstrated, at least in Wayland, that you can sign up people for R2, that there's like an educational component side of it that you've been successful at that I haven't seen people doing yet. So all those are advantages for you guys. So
Yeah, and along the lines of the people power, I think us being so small, we and me being on the invoicing side prior to this, like we can answer any questions that any customer ever has. If they need anything, if they have any questions about their bill, about what they're seeing, about what's being subtracted out of their on their auto payment, like we are always on standby to like answer any questions for anyone.
I have heard, and this hopefully it's not true still, that the utilities for a while, the credit allocation was all being done by hand, so there were lots of inaccuracies. Is that still the case? I mean, part of this, I think John knows this too. It's the utilities are trying to make it hard for third parties to do this because they want to make the money themselves and have it be an internal utility program. But do you see that often? It sounds like you have a check process to make sure the credits are the same as actually get allocated to the bills. Is that right?
Yep. So like we will basically check the Eversource bill before actually sending out the our invoice. So there will never be a scenario where the customer is seeing no subtraction on their Eversource bill, no net metering credit, and is paying us. So basically we kind of check that every single time. And yes, it is tricky to deal with utilities. I don't know if they do it by hand anymore, but problems do arise, which I think is another point of concern a lot of the times, is that there will be problems on utility bills. And that's another thing that we will take care of. Like if a customer sees any sort of issue and just lets me know, or lets anyone on the asset management team know, we will get in contact with Eversource or not Eversource, and kind of have them fix it and be the liaison for that.
And then just in the more what if situations, you answered this for me, but I want everybody else to hear this too. So let's say the price of electricity, offshore wind gets built, 3 phases of it, and the electricity price goes from, I don't know what supply is right now, maybe like 17 cents or something. And then it goes, I think the strike price on the first round was 6 cents. So let's assume electricity goes down significantly. Your discount is on top of that lower amount, right? I mean, it's a smaller slice of a smaller pie, but it's still,
so if the price
would ever pay more than market rate.
Yeah, exactly. And we also would if we were to see a massive, I mean, we're not doing it by hand, but we input the exact amount of credits that each family is going to get. It's actually proportional to a certain amount of panels. So your family might get the electricity from, I don't know, if each panel makes 1/3 of a kilowatt. So you might get 2 kilowatts worth, and that means you'll get the electricity that 6 panels are making, it's kind of cool to think of it that way. But if we see that the value of the electricity from the panels changes, or the value of electricity that they're paying changes, we will adjust their discounts accordingly. So to answer your first question, yes, they'll never be paying more than market rate. It doesn't really work like that. We just kind of offer them an extra discount after their electricity has been, after the bill has been created. So Jacob, if you go back to the sample bill page, so you see here, ignore that the number is wrong, and we just wanted to use 40 because it was simple. But if you see here, the bill before the solar credits, it was, you know, $35.29, and then they get $25 of solar credits. They just come at the very end, and they're taken off like a gift card. You know, if you have a $25 gift card on your $30 purchase, or on your $35 purchase, you only have to pay $10 more. And so it doesn't, our program doesn't impact what they're paying. They're still on, if you go down actually to the total charges, it's like below that blue bar, you'll see they're on the Eversource basic service rate. And so they're still getting their electricity from Eversource, whatever that rate is. Our program doesn't affect it. All they're getting from us is extra and, you know, a gift card applied at the end, and then they'll pay us for that, but they'll pay us less than it's worth. So they get savings that way. So yes, they would never be paying more than market rate. And if we see that electricity were to drop significantly or to grow significantly in price, we can give them a bigger chunk of gift card to match how much they're using, or a smaller chunk.
And
Does that
just
make
in terms
sense?
of marketing this, I do think it's somewhat confusing to people, and this is not your fault, to have
Yeah.
2 bills suddenly instead of 1. And the gift, you explain it very well with the gift card, by the way. I like that. I think that works well, much better than how I've usually heard it. Although, like when Jacob was talking through the bill, people do understand that there's like a certain amount that's like a base delivery, like
Yeah.
the wires is one thing and you can't get lower than that certain amount.
Right.
And the supply is what you're providing. They do understand that usually, I found, so.
Okay. Yeah. I know. I wish our goal, honestly, as an organization in a few years is to have this change so people don't have to pay 2 bills anymore. They just get the discount.
It's not you, it's,
Yeah.
utilities have made it hard for you on purpose, so.
Yeah.
It's gotta be a policy change.
Okay. That's good to know that the gift card work is helpful for you.
The gift card, I think it's very helpful.
We can
So
kind
I
of,
think people need to understand up front that they're gonna get 2 bills.
Yeah, right.
One with a gift card applied to it and one that's like the discounted amount, so.
Right.
Because otherwise it's confusing to them.
yeah. No,
And
that's
great, it used to only be credit cards too, so it's great you do a bank draw available, because a lot of people in this income class don't have great credit, and because they don't own a lot of assets, not necessarily because they don't pay their bills. And so it's good that it can be a bank amount draw, a bank account draw.
Let me ask a quick question, if I may. The last 2 minutes or so have answered the first question. I just wanted to confirm that essentially your bill is being paid in 2 hunks under this system. That people will have to take that into account, because a lot of the households that I'm imagining might be enrolled here are multiple families living under sharing one utility bill. So there'll be a modest amount of added math there. Because we are in a pandemic, there could be moments when the service industries shut down again in the next little bit, and that could conceivably mean that somebody didn't have money in the account that they had given you to make the deductions from. And I guess I'm wondering what will happen in that case. I'm assuming that it's a temporary thing, a month, maybe 2 months, as opposed to a longer term thing.
That's a good question. The way that we set up the program, to be completely honest, originally was, if somebody couldn't pay for a month or 2, we would just, in the ease of efficiency and not being bogged down, we would have to replace them in the program. But the pandemic has changed a bit of how we do some of our power purchase agreement payments, and we've done some kind of in some situations we've pushed off payments, we've done forgiveness. Leanna has been doing some of that work with certain organizations that were struggling during the pandemic. And I think in this case, we could do it on a case-by-case basis. Sorry, I'm really blown out by the light. In a similar way to where I mentioned that in specific situations, we wouldn't want to market it this way, but if people really wanted to join, but they couldn't or weren't comfortable using ACH, we could possibly let them pay by check, or they can make the payment electronically but not have it be pulled from their account. In a similar way to where we could have a few exceptions for that, I think where there were specific situations, at least at this point where we're not doing thousands of customers, we're doing hundreds, we could talk to, if a specific family had a concern, they could, let us know that somebody had lost a job or there was some reason where they wouldn't be able to pay for the next couple of months. And I think, because we have people who are working on the billing side and it's real people, it's not just computer, we would be able to talk to them about that and, possibly figure out a solution or a way to, push off those payments.
Rachel,
I don't know.
Is the system so automated that people's accounts could actually get overdrawn?
I don't know, actually. Leanna, have you done any ACH pulling?
There's a few organizations that we deal with that do opt for it. And I've never seen it be overdrawn. It'll just come in red to us and say bounced kind of. I don't think it overdraws, but I think that's something that we definitely need to double check.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good question.
That will be helpful to know because obviously if folks don't notify you in time,
right.
It could, if you're in that critical a situation and on top of that, you're paying a $39 penalty for it being overdrawn, then it becomes problematic.
Yeah, I think we should be able to set up a system like Leanna was saying where it doesn't overdraw, it will just bounce. But that's a good question. We'll clarify that with our finance team.
Thanks.
I wonder, Diego, just talking out loud here, maybe there's a way of setting up a pool money, a reserve account off to the side, that if the likelihood of any one person or a group of people defaulting major amounts is relatively small, but maybe there's a way of having a reserve account somewhere off the side that could provide some liquidity or comfort on a temporary basis that, while they get back on their feet or something like that. I know that's not standardized, so it's something that the Sunwealth folks would have to think about, but maybe there's a way that we could come up with some sort of cushion, if you will.
The other thing, Diego, is we have discussed, I didn't mention this in the presentation because it's not how we normally do low-income community solar work, but we were thinking in terms of the families in your network, we've discussed doing a 50% discount on the credits instead of 25% discount. So that's just something that, I don't know if you had read that in the previous materials that had been sent to you, but I wanted you to know that.
I had gathered that, and that will grab people's attention for sure. That's dramatic. As long as there won't, the big concern would be if there would be penalties from people not having the money in the account to cover the cost. So if we can confirm that as we go forward, that will be an important assurance to people, particularly in these times.
Yes, well, that's good. We'll get back to you about just confirming that, as you were saying, there wouldn't be overdrawn bank accounts, because I think that is definitely a good question. Hi, Judy.
Hi there.
You're joining right at the end, but you could.
Oh my God. I'm sorry, I lost track.
It's okay. We recorded it, so if we're gonna put up a link, if you want to watch we can also send you the presentation that we did.
Okay.
If that would be
Few
helpful.
people were there, and I just heard Diego asking one of the major questions about that. So, thanks.
It's good to see you. Welcome.
It is.
So Diego, what are your thoughts on how you'd want to think about this? Obviously, the recording will be available. You can show it to your colleagues. But is this something that you'd want to think about further, or have further conversations with the Sunwealth team? Or what's of interest about this, if anything?
I'd like to talk to John and Judy some more as well, as the folks who kind of channeled this to us. I mean, a lot of the folks who most need it, who we're in contact with, are renting rooms in a house with, or in an apartment with, a single electric bill. And some of those are reasonably stable units. You know, the account remains in one name over at least a couple years. It makes sense to me that if we can, I mean, I think it's a real possibility to pursue this. And I know that you folks have some families in mind, and there are some Mizzen families, and then there are some others that we can identify. So I think one of the questions for Sunwealth is sort of what volume they want us to be focusing on initially, at least, and what does make sense, you know, in terms of this feeling proportional and balanced. But yeah, I mean, it's a real savings, especially at 50%, and which I guess comes out to something like 40% with the adjustments or something. But still, that's a very real amount of money for folks for whom, you know, every penny counts. So yeah, if we can figure out the stability of it, and if it's not neither a burden for them to administer and keep track of for themselves, and not opaque for them, and if it's relatively what can be launched and can sort of glide, then I think it's great. But let's talk some more, John and Judy.
Great. And Jacob, you've got materials that I think, Diego, did you see the materials that Judy and Judy forwarded to you?
I didn't take the time to review them yet. I'm sorry.
No, it's not so about that. It's just noting that I think, Jacob, your thought is that some of those might be eventually translated into Spanish. So as you're reading it, Diego, kind of think about it. What would be useful for the people you're talking with? Which portions are like, this would be really good if it were in Spanish, as opposed to other stuff less important, because I think they have to start somewhere. So some documents obviously more useful than others.
Yeah, and we were going to wait to talk to you to see interest level, but we're happy to start working on translating them to Spanish. And the other thing we've talked about is, if necessary, looking into translating the contract into Spanish and actually hiring someone externally to do that legitimately, not just me with my Spanish.
Oh, yeah. Contract.
Yeah.
Hard.
And I think there are also, like, we can be creative on ways to make it easier, especially, for example, with families, or housing that has multiple families where they're under one electric bill. I mean, I'm thinking as simply as, splitting it up on the invoice so people can know what they're responsible for, or just, we're happy to think about ways to accommodate folks. I think, part of our goal is to really give these savings to the people who need it most, and to make it as easy as possible for them. So as you kind of think about the program, we'll also be thinking about different ideas to make it simple, and also kind of user-friendly,
right,
even though it's a bit complicated based off of how the utilities have created the format.
Well, one question that you asked, Diego, is kind of worth revisiting here is the number of people that Sunwealth's looking to sign up for. And this is sort of a question for Diego as well as Sunwealth, in terms of whether to frame this as a pilot initially, and not try and do a huge rollout, lots of publicity, but do something with a few families, road test the discussion, the presentation, find out what works, what doesn't work so well, et cetera, and then roll it out, or do a generalized rollout. I don't know the right answer to that question, but it's worth kind of thinking about what would be the easiest way, quickest way to try and get some experience under your belt in terms of working with the immigrant community.
Jacob, do you want to talk a bit about our thoughts at this point?
Yeah, I think we probably want to approach it initially like a pilot, and we're excited about expanding it into a long-term sustainable program that we can, continue building on. We've basically gone in and made sure that we can afford on our end to give 15 kilowatts of energy worth to families in the CASA or MISN network, and at the 50% discount. And 15 kilowatts is probably between 5 and 10 families. So it would be an initial rollout that's pretty small, and it definitely would function more like a pilot in terms of how we've been envisioning it. And then as we continue to build new projects, we're very excited about and willing to strongly consider incorporating this into the new projects that we continue to build in the months and years to come as well.
So Diego, one thing to kind of think about in your mind is they can do the 50%. They have a certain amount of benefits or savings, and they do this project. So they could share that amount of savings with a fewer number of people at a higher rate, 50% rate, or a larger group of people at a lower rate, 25%. So as you're thinking about what would be best received, again, there's no right or wrong answer. The question would be, do we roll it out more broadly to enable more people to benefit at a smaller rate, or a few people, but then run the risk that the next rollout for the next project adds a lower discount, and then have a situation where some people are getting a better rate than the other people and creating issues there. So again, I don't know the right answer to this one, but I think you may have a better feel for what people will feel better about.
Also, because I missed the meeting and mixed it up with another meeting at 7 that's no longer a meeting.
Sorry.
I swapped the two. Are you hoping to get as much publicity for it? That's why we're talking about it, but maybe some of it could be saved for once it's up and running. So after some of the bugs have been knocked out of it, and because John, you sort of said that earlier, I just didn't know what your timing was, because instead of a big hype before we do it and see how it works, and then get lots of publicity for you.
When do you think your next project might come available? In other words, when would you have the next group or batch of slots available? This year, next spring, a year from now?
Yeah, we have a bunch of slots. So the first project is done. It's getting turned on. Everyone's going to get their discount starting this month. The next project should get turned on probably in October, which means they'll start getting the discount in November. And that one, we have a bunch of slots. And we have another one after that that'll have slots. So those are like the 150 that I was talking about, maybe even more. And depending on how much electricity and what families we're working with. And then after that, it will probably be like the middle of next year, just because we don't have anything started yet, and it takes a couple of months to build these solar arrays. At the earliest, the middle, or late spring, early summer of next year. So we definitely are ready to get people signed up starting right now. Like, we're signing people up already for the first one that's going to be done in October, and the other one would be December or January that it's done. And so it'll be kind of rolling, but we are ready to get, like, if someone wanted to sign up tomorrow, they could, and then they would start getting their savings probably for the November bill.
Okay. So in a way, this is not we could look at it two ways. This is not a one-time offer. This is something that you're in the business of offering and developing these projects. So there may be a temporary hiatus, but there's another project presumably that would come down the road. So if people like the program, they talk to their friends, their colleagues, their building mates, there's possibilities of new additional projects becoming available as the months go by. So that would make it a little easier as opposed to saying, oh, this is the only time you'll ever get this, sign up now. Because then that sounds like a high pressure technique, which is tough. Some people just don't want to move that fast.
Yeah, big thing is you knowing enough families who might be able to be enrolled relatively quickly, who have the need, and have checking accounts and, you know, just enough people, you know, that handful of families. What, did I miss you talking about the number of families that you would love to see?
Yeah, we're thinking about the breakdown because so our traditional offer for like everyone that we talk to, for the housing authorities, for, you know, people who are signing up in Dorchester, for, you know, people is 25% discount, but we have a little extra wiggle room, like financially, for giving a bigger discount to some people, but we can't give it to everyone.
Right.
So we were talking about whether to do, you know, 5 to 10 families with 50%. The sun is right on my face, sorry. 5 to 10 families with 50% discount, or maybe, you know.
Yes, that's where we left off at.
Right. And so I think, you know, once you guys have talked about the program more, and if Diego feels comfortable, et cetera, that can kind of be the next question. But in terms of how many families we could fill at the 25% discount, you know, we could do 100. It's like not which doesn't, you know, it's a lot because a lot of people we talk to a lot of people, and unsurprisingly, which we were kind of anticipating, the auto payment is, for example, something that people just aren't comfortable with, and we have to use it to keep the program running. And so that just means that 100 families is a lot of people to sign up. And, you know, we obviously are going to that goal, but it kind of means you can advertise it as much as you want. And there's, you know, eventually, as we get closer to the deadline of the project being built, and you know, we will fill up the amount of slots, and it'll be empty. But at this point, there's a lot of space, if that makes sense.
So conceivably, one between Bethel and Casa and otherwise, we could, if we wanted to pilot it at a relatively higher rate, 40, 50%. We could, but we wouldn't hit a brick wall if we were to find 20 families.
At the higher rate, so we only have enough space for a certain number of people at the higher rate, if that makes sense. Yeah. And then we would have to switch to the 25%.
Okay.
But 20 families, you know, we could probably do, I don't know, I don't have the math in front of me, but we could probably do, I don't know, 40% discount or a 35% discount. But yeah, so that's why we were talking about the difference between a pilot and doing it.
Yeah. One thing to note though, Rachel, is that, again, we're talking, at least some of the families are at very, very low levels of consumption.
Right. So that means more families.
The cap is not numbers of families, it's kilowatt hours.
Yeah, it's kind of gets complicated, but that's how we think about it.
As a bill of $50 a month, you probably can support more families at that level than it would be families that are $500 a month.
Yeah, so you know, some people we signed up, and so when we're talking about 15 kilowatts, most like the biggest allocations that we gave for people with larger homes, and someone was, you know, they had medical equipment inside, they got 10 kilowatts, so that's a ton. Most families got like 2, maybe 1.5 at least for the smaller houses. So it does depend on you know, the electricity consumption that we're looking at.
Yeah, because I think Judy, you'd know this better than I do, but I think the Ayala family's bill was around the $50 or even less some months.
Yes, it went a couple of times. They said it might have gone to 100 this summer once.
Yeah,
but yeah, generally it was like 50, but it did get a little higher.
Yeah, so for context, that would probably be like 2 kilowatts, maybe a little less. And so that's out of the 15. And so it depends on who
15 kilowatts, right?
That's out of the 15 if we were to do a 50% discount pilot. But and so this is where we can be creative. And I think the most important thing that we want to do right now is to just get people come, get you guys comfortable with the program and answer questions, and then we can start to look at the specifics at that point.
Okay.
Diego, were you about to ask a question?
So I was just trying to get a dollar equivalence, and I know, and because there are line fees and whatever, that may not be that easy, but it sounds like roughly speaking, it's a kilowatt is $50.
Yeah, here, I actually have a table that when we were in Wayland, we were using, because we were signing people up on the spot. So we would literally do the math of their electricity used and give them an allocation. Here, let me find it 1 second. I can get you a more accurate number. The reason it's based off of, I think it depends on it's a yearly basis. Each solar credit is worth a certain amount of money. They're worth about 12 cents. And so however much your section of panels makes in terms of a kilowatt hours credits, then you'll get that on your bill. But yes, I think, about a $50 bill is maybe 1.5 kilowatts, and someone who has a bigger bill than that will have more. I guess I have a quick way to check. Yeah, I have the spreadsheet of all of the allocations that.
I could see that sort of diagram being helpful for people, because some people will think of this in kilowatts, some will think in dollars.
It's hard to
convert it.
We like to do it in dollars as much as possible.
But you need to.
Yeah. So for example, somebody who spent $430 over the year in electricity bills has a 2.5 kilowatt allocation. Oh no, that's 80%. So yeah. So what does that come out to in a month, by month basis?
Oh, not much.
Yeah, so that's pretty small. So it's actually a little bigger than the numbers I was giving, but
okay.
Yeah.
And just to reiterate, one of the things which, listening to Bev talk about the attractiveness, one of the ones that she didn't mention, I think, is only indirectly. She talked about how the original generation of community solar projects had 20-year contract terms, and you've moved away from that. So just running through scenarios, if someone decided this program was too weird, too complex, too scary, decided they didn't want somebody tapping their bank account, they can leave the program just by giving you 60 days notice, and then they're out.
Yep.
And then same thing if they're laid off and just fixed expenses just scare them, etc. So again, they can leave. Or if they move out and change locations because they're doing well and they're able to rent another location, or their family moves elsewhere or whatever, but their situation changes again, they could just give you notice and move on.
And if they stay within Eastern Massachusetts and they want to continue participating in the program, they can transfer it to a new address as long as it's still in the same utility zone.
Excellent.
Okay.
Yeah. So
if it's a better apartment, that's like great. Just no problem. Okay.
Yeah, right. As long as they were if they're still on the R2 rate or they were still in one of those zones, then they can stay on the program with their new account number.
Right. But if they moved up to the North Shore to National Grid territory, that would be a problem. So they have to stay in Eversource.
Yeah, but then they just leave and we'll replace them with someone else.
Right.
Okay, they're not billed after they leave.
Well, yeah, so the idea is if they thought they were, in an emergency situation where they're moving next week, it would probably be fine. But, we really want people to tell us a couple of months in advance if they can, so that we can find somebody else to take their spot.
If they're transferring, do you care that much about 2-month notice?
That's a good question. If they're transferring to a new account number where they're still eligible, right at this point, we're only allowed to update the list of people twice a year. So what it would just mean is their credits would, if their account was deleted, their credits would just kind of float, and then they would eventually go back to them later. Yeah, I think ideally we haven't run into that yet because we just, this is a relatively new program. But in the ideal world, yes. Like I said a minute ago, we're kind of we're not gonna charge them is the most important thing. They're not going to get any penalties. But ideally, yes, we like notice so that we can change the paperwork and send it to Eversource accordingly.
Yeah, and when so say they do transfer Eversource accounts, I will see that, or whoever's billing will see that, and they'll see that there's a problem with that, and kind of either reach out to Eversource or the customer to try and figure it out.
Well, thank you all. We've kept you from your dinner. Or
Be
microwaving it.
here. Thank you for joining us on your
Yeah,
dinner
thank
time as
you.
well.
Thank you for forgiving me, I hope. Diego, it's a good thing I saw your email and sent it to you in time for you to be on.
Thank you guys very much for your.
Thank you, thank
Yeah,
you.
Thank you. Yeah, and please just let us know if you have other questions, but we'll figure out how to get this posted online. Maybe my little brother can help me. He's much more tech savvy. And then we'll get the link out if you want to share.
Yeah,
the
that'd be great. If you can send us that,
Yes.
it gives us a reminder of, of next steps. You just, include your note saying, keep us posted, and that'll remind us to make sure that we close the loop inside of our circle on our side.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
John, for getting all this started.
Oh, no, they're the ones doing the real work. Thanks all.
Thank you, everyone.
So much.
All right. Have a good night, everyone.
Okay.
Thanks all.
Bye.